Welcome to the regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council for March 27th, 2019. Would the council members please introduce themselves, starting on my left?
Dan Haggerty.
Tamar Powell.
Lynn Erickson.
Claire Toutant.
Dave Olson.
Barbara Mathewson.
Michelle Weil.
This is the first time we've had 7 people this year. Welcome to our new member, Tamar.
Thank
You
you.
were sworn in yesterday, right?
Yes.
Good, just in time. First, Board of Supervisors report, please.
Sure. Good evening, Midcoast Community Council and community members. My name is Ellie Dahlman. I'm here on behalf of San Mateo County Supervisor Don Horsley to provide a few updates for you. And today I have 5 items to share from the board meeting this past Tuesday. The first is also to congratulate our newest MCC member, Tamar Powell. We're really excited to have you part of the MCC, and I know Supervisor Horsley would have liked to be here to say it himself, and so just want to say how excited he is to work with you as a member of the MCC. Second item is related to wildland fire. So the county is actively strategizing around ways to reduce wildland fire risk in San Mateo County. And on the recent board agenda, there was an approval of $250,000 of funding, which will go towards the coordination efforts between local fire, police chiefs, and evacuation specialists, and coordination among those groups. It will also support the Fire Safe Council and the Resource Conservation District Forest Health Plan, as well as Fire Safe Program. So that's just one example of kind of how the county is really trying to strategize to figure out how we can reduce the risk for wildland fires as much as possible. There's more information on the posted online for the public if anybody's interested in the details of that. The third item is related to second units, also known as granny units or accessory dwelling units, ADUs. Planning and Building Department amended their second unit regulations to be in compliance with state law, improve consistency and clarity, and to facilitate production of second units in San Mateo County. So there's quite a few. It's about 9-page long memo that has lots of details about those. I won't go through it now, but if anyone is interested, or if you're interested in constructing an ADU or a second unit, that would be a really good resource. The next item is related to Marauder Road. So the board approved Department of Public Works submittal of a grant application to California State Parks Division of Boating and Waterways for the Marauder Road pedestrian bridge replacement and bank stabilization project. So as I understand, they're still in the design phase on that project, but I did want to bring that to your attention because I know that is located within the Midcoast. And the last item I have is an update on the parallel trail or the multimodal trail. The county is working in coordination with Caltrans to construct a just under a mile long 2-direction bicycle and pedestrian trail, which will start east of Highway 1, kind of where the Naomi Patridge Trail ends at the border of the city of Half Moon Bay, and it will run north to the Coronado Street intersection just past El Granada Elementary School. It will also include a direct connection, kind of a trail spur to the elementary school. So many of you know, we've been working on the designs for that project, and we're gearing up for construction next year, which is really exciting. And on the recent board agenda, contract amendment was approved with BKF, who's the engineering firm that we are working with to develop the designs. Some of you may have heard that we had a little bit of a overlap with the new force main that was installed by the sewer authority Midcoast. Unfortunately, where we had planned to install one of our bridge abutments over the creek, the sewer main was installed in too close to where we had planned to install the bridge abutments. So we had to amend our contract just to make sure that we do all the work necessary to ensure that it does not conflict with the sewer main there. So that's moving right along, and we expect to be completely done with the designs this year. And we are still in search of a little bit of funding to make that to complete the construction phase. So I know that the CCAG Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee will be coming out with a call for projects in, I think, next month. So we will be trying to go after some funds there to make the trail a reality. So those are all the updates that I have for you, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you.
Great.
Chris Johnson? By the way, please fill out speaker slips if you want to comment on something either on or off the agenda.
Thank you, Claire. My name is Chris Johnson. I am a member of the community. I used to be on the MCC and am attending the San Mateo County Parks Dog Management Committee meetings as a representative of the MCC. So I wanted to give you guys an update on where that committee is right now and what's happening with that. The community is making pretty good progress. What we're doing right now is trying to establish a pilot program for the dog management policies that were enacted this past fall. There are a variety of different policies that were enacted, but some that you might have seen signs for: no more than 3 dogs per person, dogs must be on leash, pick up after your poop, basic stuff. But this pilot program is to see how the new dog policies, dog management policies, will play out in real life in settings where dogs haven't traditionally or historically been allowed. So what the committee did last month at our meeting last month was we looked at a variety of, or a selection of county parks to try to decide which 2 we wanted to select for the pilot program. The ones that we had to choose from: Coyote Point, Junipero Serra, which is up in San Bruno, Memorial Park and Pescadero Creek, which are both down in Pescadero, and Flood Park. And for a variety of reasons, we took a vote and we came up with Coyote Point and Junipero Serra. Coyote Point, there's a lot of activity there, both recreational. There's some neighborhood people that come from across the highway and use that. And there were a lot of violations there of the new policy. And so Parks looked at that and just determined that one of the reasons is that there's a lot of activity going on there. People come there for recreation, they bring their dogs, and so maybe that's a good place to try this pilot program. Junipero Serra was chosen because it has some rural aspect, but it also abuts a neighborhood, so we can kind of see, and it has some connecting trails, so that was an important thing. We want to see if we connect different parks together with trails. How's that going to work if we allow dogs in the county parks to, in parks that are adjacent to parks that already allow dogs? Will that be a good thing, a bad thing? We're going to find out. So we've selected these 2 parks for the pilot program. This month, what we're going to do at our meeting on Monday, and this, in case anybody wants to come, these are public meetings. The meetings are the first Monday of every month at 2 o'clock at the Board of Supervisors chambers in Redwood City. And we've actually had to move it there because we were having so many members of the public come. Unlike the 2 years that we spent developing the policy when almost nobody came, now we're getting a lot of people coming to comment, which is great. So they've moved it to the Board of Supervisors chambers, which is also great. Screens and audio and everything, it's really nice. About 20 to 25 people the last couple of meetings have come to make their comment. Let's see, where was I going with that? So you can come, so at the meeting on Monday, this coming Monday, what we're going to be working on is developing the evaluation criteria. So great, we want to do a pilot program, we've selected the sites, now how exactly are we going to evaluate this policy? So that's going to be working on Monday. If anybody wants to come and offer comment on that, we're more than willing to listen. And one other important thing, off-leash pilot program was discussed, and I heard the exact words that as early as July, there could be an off-leash pilot program location. The one being mentioned right now is Quarry Park. My comment to the committee and to county staff was, you need to get to the MCC and let them know and possibly have a meeting about that, because people here feel very strongly about it one way or the other. I can't say how many and which, but I can make that statement and feel confident. People here feel very strongly about it one way or the other. So MCC is the vehicle for that, and hopefully there'll be a meeting before July, because another option was the Pillar Point Bluffs. And one of the reasons that is being considered is they showed a graphic of the amount of violations so far. Quarry Park had 3 violations. The Pillar Point Bluffs had, it was close to 200, it was like 197 or something. So, you know, do we put it in Quarry Park because people are following the rules and that's a good place and it's out of the way? Or do we not make 197 people lawbreakers and put it over here? Community should weigh in on that. If you have any questions. Okay. That meeting is every first Monday of every month, 2 o'clock, Board of Supervisors Chamber.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Glenn.
Is there anybody else from an agency? Then we're open for public comment. I have 1 speaker slip. Oh, wait a minute. What? I think you're on the official agenda. Although, actually,
If you have an initial report, go for it.
yeah.
No initial report, but.
What if it's okay with the council? Sure. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, council, community members. First of all, let me introduce myself. I am Lieutenant Mayolo Ben Willis, assigned to the Redwood City area office. I am the field operations officer in charge of the patrol operations of our area itself. Redwood City pretty much covers San Mateo County and the north end of Santa Clara County. Any questions or concerns?
Well, we appreciated you coming. We have been reaching out to a number of people who are involved in traffic, mostly spurred on by the recent road closures. And I know that that is not something you decide, and I know that the tunnels are not in your jurisdiction, but I thought you might be able to give us a little bit of information about how we should be looking at that and how the sheriff's, how CHP was involved with it.
Well, you know, that day, of
That should be
course.
held for the agenda item, right?
Okay, I thought we were moving it to this.
Well, we
This
could,
is-
yeah, but we should,
General comments are separate from the other.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just,
yeah.
I'm sorry. So if you can stay for the actual agenda item, we can pursue that kind of thing then.
Okay, if anything, any questions about me or anything? In the meantime, I just want to at least introduce myself and,
I have one question.
yes, ma'am.
The San Francisco is in charge of up to and past the tunnel, the parking lot? That's correct, and then you guys, Redwood City, do Graywell Cove, up to Graywell Cove?
They, Montana State Beach on State Route 1, north of, belongs to,
Yeah, Montera is
Montera,
ours, and
sorry.
actually Graywell Cove is San Francisco's. There's a milepost marker, and basically what I've checked it to be, it's actually right in between both State Beach parking lots. It's right in between there. So before you even start going through the curves, that's the end of our area.
And do you know how often San Francisco comes all the way down there?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It's at the very bottom of their beat. So typically they try to stay in the middle of their beat and sweep their beat, you know, every now and again. I've gone up there a couple times. I know that there was parking enforcement issues, and, you know, we can go into other areas if we need to. So I did address some of the parking enforcement stuff that they have going on up there. You know, the area where it says no parking and people park all the time. And so I have gone up there before. So I know a good amount about it, but I couldn't tell you how much they actually come down to that area.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
and Officer Patty Lindsay patrols this beat whenever she.
I know, yeah, I see you
She
quite
takes a lot of
often.
pride providing service to the community out here on the coast.
Okay, thank you.
Just again, so going south, you go south to the county line?
Santa Cruz County line, yes, sir.
Okay. I found through a couple of incidents in the past year that when you get right near those boundary lines, you know, sometimes both agencies or both divisions don't go there as frequently, just because it's at the border.
At least on a daily basis, each unit that's assigned, for example, the patrol officer that's assigned to that beat, they're at least required at the beginning of the shift to go check the beat, and of course, they're going to be handling calls in between state routes, unincorporated roadways, handling crashes, catching up reports, but they'll go out there to make sure that there's anybody out there that needs any help, or just a call, they'll handle it. In fact, last month, at the beginning of the month, I attended the Pescadero meeting, and a call came out, and it was very windy that night, about sand in the roadway, and we were already clearing the day of the traffic incident, and the beat unit was responding from, you know, close to the office, but we were in the area, we handled the call, and it's close down there. It's a far area, but we still were there in the area to handle the call.
Yeah.
And you're right, though. I mean, and this area is actually the biggest beat for us. And typically, we only have one officer out here. So for me, I'm actually all the way from the top to the bottom and parts of, 35 out there too. So it is a very long beat sweep. It does take a lot of time. And that's why, I asked you guys last time, any areas you guys want me to focus on, because it's a really big beat, and I'm typically, going back and forth from different areas, so.
This past Sunday, I noticed a fair amount of enforcement on Highway 1 with both you and the sheriffs. And I was wondering if this was something that you're going to be doing more on weekend evenings to make sure that things stay safe out here. Seemed like a good idea.
It is a good idea, especially when it starts warming up, because it's been getting really busy out here. So yeah, we're just trying to make our presence known, slow people down, especially where the pedestrians are.
We'll make sure our officers are out there patrolling for speed, traffic violations, impaired drivers that are out there. We did have a wreck out here that was pretty bad past weekend.
Well, I appreciate you doing that.
No problem.
One of the concerns that I have are these cars that have their driver's side and passenger side windows tinted, so you can't get eye contact with the driver. And, not only for pedestrians and cyclists, to be able to see, get some kind of feedback if the driver even sees that they're there, not only, but also other automobiles. So it's something that I continually see more and more. In fact, I have a picture of a security company, has a security, with the lights on, everything, full tent, dark tent, limo tent, and I'm just seeing it over and over again. So how do you guys handle that? I understand it's illegal.
Yeah, no, it's still legal, so whenever, you're right, the patrol officer's out there and sees a violation, they're gonna take the appropriate enforcement action. We were just talking about that's been an issue out here, and if she's out here patrolling, or any other officer, or a sheriff deputy who's out here, and they see that, and they have the time, and they're not responding to a call, they'll stop the vehicle and issue a correctable violation, or a citation if it's already, because it'll show that they've already had a prior conviction for it, then we can take non-correctable, and of course, there'll be a point, against the record, but no, we'll do our best.
Well, it is a
Yeah,
point.
what happens is the first time, the first citation will be a correctable, we can issue as a fix-it ticket, right, known as a fix-it ticket. However, if they get another one, then the officer can hopefully, on the driving record, will show that they had a prior, fix-it, then they'll make it a non-correctable. So it won't be a point, but at least it won't be a fix-it ticket, it'll be a fine this time.
That might actually change things, because I know people that say, I don't care, I'll pay the ticket.
Yeah, they'll do the fix-it
I
ticket.
want to have this because it looks cool, or whatever reason they choose to do that.
Yeah, and part of the enforcement as an officer, you want to provide enforcement education to the public. Some people aren't aware, they'll buy a vehicle with tinted windows, they think it's legal, they'll come out of state, or some other states, it's illegal to have tinted windows, however in California, it is not legal. So a good time, that's when the officer, if it's the first time, write a correctable citation, it's a fix-it ticket, as we call it, and hopefully that can get the point across. But if they have that attitude, they'll get stopped again, and hopefully when the officer runs their driving record on the computer, it'll show up that they already had a ticket for this that was correctable, and they're doing it again, and that's when they can say, no, not correctable this time.
Great.
Thank you. Are you able to stay around for the item on the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Public comment, I have one speaker slip from from Greg Diegos.
Hi, Greg Diegas, Montera. I want to thank the board for having the Office of Emergency Services on the agenda. I attended a wildfire climate change seminar.
Just so you know, that microphone is directional, so you kind of should leave it there. So
Should leave it there? They'll still hear me?
Speak directly, speak
Okay.
directly.
All right.
Have it pointing towards
Thanks,
your
Dan.
mouth. Yeah.
Okay. So I attended the seminar, and so congratulations, we are in the epicenter of wildfire risk in San Mateo County, right in Montero. I was particularly struck by the example of Sonoma, the mayor who testified that it was 1:30 in the morning, she'd been recently elected, she gets a phone call, and she didn't know what to do. She didn't know who to call. And of course, things went wrong. Phones didn't work, cell service wasn't right. The Brown Act got in the way of the city council holding the coordinating meetings because they felt they couldn't meet without public notice. All kinds of things. And we don't have a mayor to take the phone call. And I brought this up at the Water District in Montera, and they said, well, we think the general manager will get a call from OES, but, you know, board discussion, nobody really knows what the procedure is in the event of a wildfire emergency. And I'm sure the tunnel closure and the traffic escape issues will bear on this too. So, you know, I brought this up in September, in November, and in February. And I wanted to let you know that I talked to Councilman Horsley and two members of his office, Dan Melville and Deborah Hurst, about the need for an audit of our fire preparedness. And the one thing I think Horsley and I agreed on was the need for that kind of an audit. And a surrogate for that audit is a report called an ISO report, which is prepared for insurance reasons to give everybody a rating and set their insurance coverage ratings. That will be a surrogate for just how prepared we are. And I've been trying to get that report now for several months. These people have volunteered to help. I spoke to the deputy fire marshal yesterday, 2 days ago, and he's got a chief working on finding that report. And so when we get it, we'll have an idea just how prepared we are. But I wanted to let you know that I've also gathered all the test statistics on hydrant pressures for the last 10 years. And there are 15 hydrants in the Montero-Moss Beach, Montero Water District territory that have been tested in the last 10 years. There are over 150 hydrants. I also have the data for CCWD, but I haven't had time to go through and run numbers, and I can't tell you what percentage of those actually passed the flow test. So I think this is not an issue that's going away. There's going to be more that can be said. I will give you what I find, especially that ISO report, and I hope it will continue to remain on your attention. That is to say, the procedures, the preparedness. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Consent agenda, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there anybody else that wanted to comment? Okay. 2 items on the consent agenda. One is the minutes for February 27th, and also the approval of a letter, which is on the agenda, to support the application for the Ohlone-Patola Trail to be designated as a state historic trail. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
7-0. Let's see, announcements, which I think I skipped over. We had the announcements about the Board of Supervisors meeting, which were welcome. Council members Dave and Len will be meeting with representatives from the county and from Caltrans in Moss Beach to discuss options for Highway 1 in the section in Moss Beach, which is a positive development. In less urgent announcements, there is a photography contest being sponsored by the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, and Farm Day, which honors coastal agriculture, is coming up this Friday. Both things are open to the public. Let's see. In terms of our regular agenda, since we did have a lot of uproar and concern about road closures recently, we're going to be focusing this meeting and the next couple of meetings on issues related to safety here, and especially in terms of emergency preparedness. The Highway Patrol has graciously come tonight, as you know. There was some thought that Caltrans would be able to come tonight. We weren't able to work out the details on that, but we do expect them probably at the next meeting. And then the sheriff will be coming at a subsequent meeting along with OES and some related people. So we're going to try to put together a rather focused opportunity for the community to learn more about what the issues are in terms of emergency preparedness and as it relates to the roads. But before we get to that, we have a presentation on something else that's of importance to the community, and that's our parks. Ranger Escoto is here, I believe.
If he's not, I'll give the presentation.
Okay. If not, then Scott Lombardi, Park Superintendent, is that right? Yeah.
Sure.
We'll present. the latest developments in the improvements for the Moss Beach Playground.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm kind of gimpy. I got a new knee for Christmas. So we wanted to bring this presentation to the MCC. We've been taking a look at Moss Beach Playground. A lot of the playground is out of compliance now. It's reached its lifespan. We're probably looking at, I think, some of the play structures in the 10, 15-year range. That's usually a compliance issue. And as we go through the PowerPoint, you'll see some of the issues that we're having with it. And then this was also something that was given out to the community. We had the community involved deciding on the type of structures that they would like to have in the playground. It has some logistical challenges to this, but as we work through this, I'll kind of talk about the amenities that we're going to try to put into the playground. There's some long time lead for ordering some of these things. Some of these things are 20 weeks out. So if we can get this through and you guys like what you see here, this is great. This is our next step to go to the board and get approval and move with this project. So the current structures right now in the playground, like I just stated, have been there 10 to 15 years. They are warping. They do not have a concrete foundation on it. You can kind of tell on the center structure, the towers, you can see them leaning in. So we're starting to get to a point that we are concerned about a safety hazard on it. This is what actually drove us looking at the playground and replacing these components. The time that this playground was put together, it was done by the community. We came back, I think it was about, I'm trying to think, because it was about 4 years ago, I think we were involved. We went back in. Supervisor Horsley helped us. We put about $250,000 into the playground at that time, correcting drainage, safety issues, working on a restroom that we put in. So we've started, it's kind of like phase one. This is our next phase that we're going to take. So we have some conditions. There's some structures out of compliance. There's line of sight. This is something that gets brought up about when you have different age groups in playgrounds. There's a tot area, there's a 6 till 12 area, and a line of sight, and some of these hazards, fall zones, are not compliant now. So this is why we've looked at new structure. This is the tot lot. It has some conditions with it. Like I mentioned with the tower structure, there's no concrete foundation on it. It's got warpage to it. We've spent time rebuilding it, and actually I think the components that we have that we would like to put back are a lot more exciting and fun for the park, for the kids. So as you can see, we had 2 rounds of public engagement and 169 respondents. And the respondents overwhelmingly chose option B. Option B basically has the tower concept, but it has a lot more amenable play structures. It opens up more of an open play area. And as we move through the structure, we will also see that we've actually added more amenities to the playground. So it's more like the new theory on playgrounds now is like an open play system. It has direction to it. So kids can not only play on the large structures, they have smaller amenities also. So this is the tower structure that the community has selected. And as you can see, it actually has a lot more amenities than the old wooden structure that was there originally. Has some really nice features to it. It still has about the same height. You can see at the height of it, it's almost 30 feet high, 27.5 feet high. But they can't get to the top of it. That's more just an aesthetic. The designer of this, 2 of the structures that we're going to talk about in here tonight are by Miracle Play Structures. And the other one is, it's Chemrock, isn't it? I think it's Chemrock, yeah. Okay. So these are some of the amenities that we would like to put with the tower structure. This is the 5 through 12 age group area. So we wanted some interactive play features. They make some noise. They got some really unique stuff like the starfish and the drums. It's kind of neat. Now, this is what we're looking at, the open park course. So we've added a couple more amenities to it. By having the tower structure at one side of it, we're also going to incorporate this other net structure, as you can see down at the bottom. It's got the boat involved in it. So the whole area is going to be pretty interactive. It's not the best slide. I hope you guys can kind of see what's going on. It's got the boat up in the upper part of, I wish I had a, yeah, you can kind of see that. That's in the top of the play area. So we've spent a lot of time looking at using as much space as we could, but we're also very aware this was professionally laid out, so all of the fall zones for the playground are compliant. This is for the tot lot. We're looking at taking out the wooden structure that gives Slivers and his work. We're going to give him a little castle there. We're looking at having the harbor seals directly related to FMR down there, which I think is a nice touch. And we've also got a fencing area that's between the tot lot and the 5 till 12 area. And we're looking at possibly taking that fence area out and actually giving accommodations to have benches alternating turned opposite directions. So you could be in each play area and possibly planters in between, so it does still have a separation there. But I think it'd be a nice feature from the old wooden benches. So this is an aerial photo of what the current site looks like right now, so you can kind of get an overview. You can see the tot lot is on the top of the screen up there. That's 2 to 5. And the area that we talked about, the new tower structure, would go where the old one is, and then that open par course is where all the netting structure and all the other amenities go in. And what we're looking at, Greg had marked out, I wish he was here because he did a lot of work on this. One of the challenges for doing this playground is logistically how we get in and how we do it in phases. So the best access point is circled in red to the right-hand side there, right off the street. So the first structure, all the structures would have to come down, and then that would logistically let us get into the playground itself and start setting the structures and working our way out. So this is kind of the timeline of what we're looking at right now. In April, we're looking at ordering the components, prepare for August, temporary fencing, demolition, tear everything out. This is if we can get it on schedule. These are hopeful. We've been told that we could get the components in time to fit this schedule, but this is looking at about 4 months that the playground would actually be closed. And once we get in there, I'm going to have to fence it off for security and safety reasons. So this is what we're kind of looking at when I was speaking about earlier about lead times. Some of the components are 16 to 20 weeks out, whereas the other components can come in a little bit later. The cost of these components, we're looking at about $413,000 in that neighborhood to do the renovation to the playground. So if you have any questions, that's kind of what I have wrapped up here. Basic need of it right now is we really want to get it compliant. We want to make it so everybody can use it, and we want to make sure that the neighborhood and everybody is happy with the process we've gone through. We went out for a community engagement twice on this to make sure we had ample information because Don Horsley wanted to know. We worked very closely with Ellie to make sure that everything was right, and the next step was bring it to the MCC to see what you guys thought about it. So I'm open to take any questions that you have.
You're going to be demolishing the whole air play areas that exist now?
Yes, the whole thing's going to come out. The question that I'm going to have is I've got to find out about, once the board says we can go for this, then I got to start doing my purchasing and find out we may not have some components that are going to take a little longer, and we may not demo the whole thing. I'm not totally sure. We just did a full scope. If everything went right, it'd be closed for 4 months.
And how about the climbing wall? Are you gonna have another one of those?
That's the net climber.
That's gonna be.
So that's kind of like Quarry Park. The kids, they love that thing in Quarry Park.
Because the
And-
climbing one's all broken anyway.
It is, and actually they have a lot more fun on those net structures. We have 2 other structures in our park system, and the kids just love them.
Will there be swings?
Yes, there's swings that are not coming out, that are, if we go back into the slide there, thank you. You see the blue ones down in the corner down there? So there are swings still there, and they take up a large area just from the fall zone, but we had just put those in new about 4 years ago. So,
they'll stay.
yeah, they're gonna stay.
And the ones in the Todd area as well?
Yes.
I have a question about funding.
Sure.
Is any of this coming out of the Midcoast developer fees funding?
No.
Good.
We're gonna take it from, the Parks Department has a Measure K fund for our playgrounds, and that's what we're gonna take it out of.
I love the fact that you have such things that are specific to the coast that are included here with the starfish and the boat and that kind of thing. I think that's great, because this is one of the community's success stories. This was, for those who don't know, originally put together by parents, and when it was threatened to be sold, the county stepped in and bought the property, and you've always worked directly with us to keep it going, which we're really quite pleased with.
Well, thank you. The neighborhood has always been there to help, and I think when we started, we put a restroom in, fixed the blacktop, and it was a good improvement. It was much needed at the time. Like I stated, it's a compliance issue, but and it needs to be taken care of. So we could go in there and piecemeal a few things, but it's just not worth it. You know, we're probably gonna spend more time than we would ripping it out and put it in to be in compliance and end up with new structures.
Are there any comments or questions from the community?
Sure.
Did you say that this was going to be wood? Is that what was
These are metal and plastic. So, and it's a coated metal, so we thought about the salt air and everything that's on it, so, yeah, we've questioned that wood is gonna last the longest. Most of the structures that you see now, they do have a lifespan in there. It's at 10 or 15 year, and they're pretty much done. Yeah, place them.
Also, will the statue be staying?
Yeah, nothing's getting touched up. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Yeah.
Sure.
So I thought I heard you earlier say that the community chose option B, which is wood.
It's the tower structure. Yeah, option B is the,
So only the tower structure.
no, they actually
Replaced
picked all
with wood.
all the amenities and everything that's in there. Yeah, let's go back, can we go back another one? So if we come
I'm
up,
confused. Is the structure going to be wood, metal, plastic, or all three?
no, it's a metal plastic structure.
No
is what
wood.
it is. There's no wood.
Zero wood.
Zero wood. We're gonna be taking everything out, and actually, the original tower structure is, it's the plastic wood and also timber mixed, and that's why it's actually warping, because there's no foundation and it has no structural strength to the plastic.
So knowing that this is kind of a special play structure built by community members, volunteers, was there a real comparison of the cost of, repairing it or making the adjustments? I did hear you say, that you thought that it would be more expensive to bring it up to compliance without demolishing it completely.
Yeah.
Was there a real, cost study on that?
Yes, a lot of the materials you can't get anymore. The yellow pine that has to be used on it is from, I believe it was from Alaska. It was a hog structure that was in there before. We looked at repairing it and getting the timbers, and we couldn't get it to do it. Matter of fact, we even went back to the original manufacturer to get their opinion on it, and the cost was even higher than what we are looking at right now.
I thought that it was all built by volunteers. So.
It was, but there was a playground company involved in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned pine. Redwood is not common. I'm
No,
pressing.
they
Can
made
you
it
explain
on-
why they need to, if they were to rebuild it or refurbish it, why would they have to use pine? Why could they not use?
Well, one of the
Redwood?
major problems of rebuilding it in the first place is that a lot of the components aren't in compliance. Head entrapment, fall zones, sight zones, so to rebuild it wouldn't do us any good anyway because it's out of compliance. It doesn't meet playground specifications. And our playgrounds inspectors have been out there, we have 2 for the department, and they have checked all the head entrapment areas, and that's why we had the sight zones and the fall zones, everything marked.
Was it in compliance when it was built because of design?
At that time it was, yes.
So the laws?
That changes all the time, yeah.
Okay.
We have to stay current with it every year. And our playground instructors are trained every year. They have to go to Sacramento to be trained on playground inspections.
Interesting.
I just wanted to say, I have a 2-year-old who uses this park all the time, and I think, it does definitely seem like could potentially be a safety issue the way it is right now, and I'm excited to see what you guys have planned here, especially taking part, or taking a survey of the community. I think I participated in that survey, and it seems like you guys have really taken what everyone had to say in mind.
We tried really hard.
So, I would just say that, I would, once it closes down, it'll be really tough for people who rely on that as a place to go, and I think the next closest park is either Quarry Park or the next closest playground is either Quarry Park or Pacifica Frontierland, so, hopefully, the way that you have it planned to only be closed for 4 months, hopefully that'll work out.
Worst case scenario, 4 months. If everything comes in, it'll go a lot faster than that.
Okay.
But I can't make a promise.
Of course.
It's all
Yeah.
about purchasing and shipping.
Yeah.
And getting the materials.
So will you have all the materials before you close the park down?
We
or-
will, it depends on when the first one, the long lead one for the 16 to 20 weeks.
Yep.
When that first component comes in, and then the installers come in to put it in, that'll pretty much drive when we're gonna get in there and demo it
Okay.
and close it down.
Okay.
And we will inform you as we hear more about it. If you approve what we're gonna do, we will definitely be in touch with you to let you know our schedule and what is happening.
Great.
I'd like to make one comment for the community and Michelle. There's the playground at Clipper Ridge, which the county's also refurbished, and the playground at Frenchman's Creek is also slated for some major refurbishment by Half Moon Bay, because that's in the Half Moon Bay city limits, but I would hope that they're not going to be done at the same time. We'll have to see.
We could check into that. I don't know. Hopefully, we're in the queue first.
Yeah, I think they're just starting the process, so they're probably 6 months to a year behind you.
Okay.
Can we get some lights?
Any other questions? Okay. So what do you guys think?
I love
That's
it.
good.
You like it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We're happy. Do you want a formal statement from us, or just our
I think
wishes?
Ellie can take that back to Dawn. He's interested, he's really wants to have this happen, and we made sure that we tried to do everything we could to make it the right process, to make everybody happy with what we're trying to do.
It's hard to be unhappy about a playground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, make people happy. Okay, thank you for your
Thanks so
time,
much,
I
Scott.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Scott.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, have a good night.
Bye.
Good seeing you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Van Willis, for sticking around, both of you.
Nice meeting you.
I think if you can address at all some of our concerns, I think the things that we might be most interested in hearing from you would be ideas about how the roads here would be handled in an emergency, what kind of plans exist for that, and also about communication to the community of emergency situations.
Well, to understand your question, first of all, you're asking about in case of a,
Fire, flood,
okay.
Earthquake.
So I know that one of the issues that happened that evening was a lot of, here in San Mateo, they have the San Mateo County Alert, right?
Yeah.
And there was some type of miscommunication broadcasted on that alert system that was actually broadcasted through our SIG alerts that Caltrans is in charge of the state, right? You know, so that's the big issue there. Maybe, you know, I mean, and it also depends where this is occurring, though, also, like you said, that if there's a emergency in the city of Half Moon Bay, who has the responsibility, the jurisdiction of that, and of course, or out in the county, or out on a state route. So it comes down to where exactly it's happening, kind of like you guys have the tsunami, right, evacuation already pre-planned. It just depends on what the scenario, the emergency is.
Could you go through the specifics on the tunnel? That is, we understand that Caltrans itself has rules that dictate that when power's off, they have to close it.
Yes.
Is it your responsibility to execute that closure?
No, so the OSS is with the law enforcement, right, we're the law enforcement for that jurisdiction. So what happened that afternoon was the power went out, right? And that's a long tunnel, and it requires some type of ventilation and fans, or else the carbon monoxide can build up in that tunnel. And that was the issue that, since there's no power, they asked our units, San Francisco area first, because that's the jurisdiction, to respond out there. But as soon as the units got there, they started escorting vehicles out of the tunnel. However, there's an air quality control law, I guess, a law that will not allow vehicles to proceed through that tunnel until the air ventilation is back up and running. And without power there, that was the issue that afternoon. And that's where the miscommunication was sent out to San Mateo County, alert that it would be opening at around 1800 hours. Yeah, exactly. And that was the issue there. And of course, it happened during commute hours. And you can only imagine San Francisco area, normal commute hours. Redwood City area commute hours at that time is hectic on the freeways. And of course, everybody wants to come back into town. And that was the big issue. You know, San Francisco area sent their supervisors out to the field to try to mitigate whatever they could. They try to see if they can bypass vehicles on Old State Route 1, which doesn't belong to the state anymore. So they would allow that. And eventually, the plan was to route vehicles through 92, right, back into town would be here. And that was another big issue.
I believe there was tree work going on at that time.
Okay, so yeah, so with the tree work, of course, you know, and I said I cannot talk in behalf of Caltrans or PG&E, you know, that's, I'm here to talk about our department, our agency, and especially the Redwood City area. In that situation, the tree trimming, right, you know, they're trying to get ahead of the fires, right? Of course, that's why they're trimming the trees. They already had a permit, and it already had been going on a few nights before. Some rumors were out that they were shutting down at 6 p.m., which is not true. Whenever any type of construction you see on the freeway or on a state route, they need to get permit and permission through our Department of Transportation in Oakland, which says, okay, yes, you can conduct this construction or repair during these certain hours, right? That evening, they had the right to do their work starting at 7:30 p.m. However, they weren't actually out there till about 8:30 p.m. And once they were out and set up, because some of their employees from PG&E also got stuck in the commute traffic. And what happened there was they had permit to do one-way traffic control. And once they set up this big crane, it's not easy to just clear out the roadway. And that evening, what happened was a lot of concerned citizens were upset, right? An inconvenience. They did make some phone calls to our dispatch center, which were routed to our supervisor from the Redwood City area. As soon as he handled the call from the concerned citizen, he took the proactive measures to call the patrol units that were assigned to that detail to assist PG&E to reduce or try to find out what's going on. So, you know, they have the traffic control, right? So to bleed out that traffic, they kind of set a ratio of relieve 100 cars westbound to compare to 10 cars, you know, to allow some of that flow to go back into Half Moon Bay. Eventually, by that later on that evening, they actually, PG&E shut down all operations, but they couldn't remove that crane because it's a lot of work. So they did at least, you know, after a while, the traffic did flow. And like I said, the communication was, our supervisor did put SIG alerts to let traffic know that he could use alternate routes, 92 of course, or even State Route 84 to Woodside. But that's what happened that evening.
So from your perspective then, Caltrans is both the agency that has the rules that shut down the tunnel because of the power failure.
Yes.
And they're also the agency that handles the permits they create the congestion condition on 92. That's
Oh.
a different group there, but
Yes,
Would do
so,
both.
so any type of, you know, say if it's Caltrans or any type of like PG&E or any other agency that's gonna do repair work, they need to send these permits, and of course, Caltrans will approve it.
so I guess from a public question standpoint, which would be more of a Caltrans question, are those two areas of responsibility coordinated? So if there's a problem over on the tunnel on one, then another issue on 92 at the same time, there's crosstalk between them?
It was eventually, once they found out that the traffic was backed up on 92, they did call and tell PG&E, hey, do something about this traffic, or they're gonna actually shut down the project that night.
But you ultimately can go to these tree trimmers or whoever they were and say you need to,
Yes, and that's, like I mentioned earlier, our supervisor working that evening did take those proactive measures after talking to a concerned citizen and told the unit to relay this message. He even himself responded to the scene and, in our area, and then started flowing traffic westbound. And they did, and they were very cooperative of helping out.
Do you know what time that was?
Yeah, anywhere after 10 p.m., that's when it started. Or
Yeah.
the first call that our supervisor made was about 10:30 p.m. to the beat units.
To the point where it was actually flowing? you
Yes,
said.
after 10:30, 11 p.m.
It's about 11 PM?
Yeah.
That it started to flow?
Yes, after they changed the one-way traffic control, like allow cars and they stop the work out there.
I
But
must have passed through there just before, I think it was just
yeah,
before.
and if
11.
you passed by there, you saw that big crane.
Yeah, the boom truck?
The boom truck.
Boom truck that, where they were up there.
Yes.
cutting.
And the days before that, there was no issue with the traffic. But of course, think about just everybody using that tunnel.
At the tunnel, how did the decision process go to let your people on the ground know that the tunnel power was back on and then they could open that up?
We had, the San Francisco area was there, since I was their incident command, they were there.
But is it Caltrans that notifies you then?
Yes, because they're there, and then,
So they have officials on site? at the
yes,
time?
and about 12:30 is when they, I think it's 12:26 to be exact, that morning is when they actually opened the tunnel.
And who was it that communicates with SMC alerts?
That's, we're not sure, I'm not sure if it was either, what agency, either the sheriff's office, I don't want to say, or the county roads. I mean, we do, our management does use, our area in River City does use SMC. However, the CHP itself, we don't, it's an outside entity, like we do have our Caltrans, our own TMC SIG alerts that we use.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Is there any authority at any time where, the CHP can have the authority to make, real-time decisions based on the actual, what's going on at the time? I understand that there's all of these laws written in all of these books to cover everybody's, behind from design, construction, lawsuits, this and everything, but that day, there were extremely high winds. I believe under normal circumstances, there is a natural passive airflow through the tunnel. And I can't imagine at all that with those essentially gale force winds that day, that there was any ventilation problem within the tunnel. So I understand it may be, at this point in time, too late to confirm that, measure that, whatever. But if a patrolman like yourself showed up in a situation and you witnessed a heavy flow of air going through the tunnel, that would you have the authority to determine that there's plenty of airflow?
I wish it'd be easy to answer that, but when it's life or death situation, of course, what's more important, right? When the situation was life or death involved in the situation, there was more traffic, I understand, inconvenience, people are backed up. But in that decision, if it's like a life or death situation, of course the officer's gonna, act upon that. It's kind of hard just to say, here, my opinion. Of course, when you say we have laws and liability and different rules that we have to follow, of course, it's one of those judgment calls on scene.
I'd like to give the community an
Can I
opportunity
speak
to,
first, or can I speak?
if we could come back to it.
Okay.
I have one speaker slip from Sid Young.
Oh, do I get to talk before they leave?
on this topic?
Yes.
Good.
No, well,
No,
This is public question
this is,
now.
yeah, we were actually past public comment, but if you have a question, please ask.
Okay, I apologize if it's already been covered since I got here late, but it's not just the tunnel that I'm concerned about. On St. Patrick's Day, there was a lot of,
Here we go.
Can you go to the microphone?
yep. Is there anyone here from the sheriff's department?
No?
Nobody from Caltrans either, right?
I'd be happy to pass the message on.
You're with Don Leslie's office?
And I am.
Oh, good, okay.
All right, so didn't have time to make myself notes because I was rushing to get here as it was, but Carlisle and Young, Moss Beach. The night of the tunnel issue, I got the SMC alert. I was coming home from the doctor's office in Redwood City. I bypassed 92 because SMC alert said, oh, the tunnel would be open at 5:45. So I get down there, there's a power failure. Even I waited in a restaurant for a while. Their lights came on, I ordered a hamburger. They still hadn't opened the tunnel. Meanwhile, no SMC alert update. Secondly, even, no offense, but the poor CHP that were closing the highway in Pacifica, they did not have any information. They were trying to give people information that were just walking up to them, but those people were putting it on Nextdoor, and if it weren't for Nextdoor, I waited for quite some time, and finally I went home via 84 because on Nextdoor, that was the only place where it said people were getting through. The Highway 92 is backed up all the way from Bunker Hill Road, and I saw it when I came home from Redwood City at Kaiser. I saw it was backed up earlier in the afternoon, like before 5:30, but I thought the tunnel would be reopened. I mean, by then. Of course, it wasn't. Secondly, then I fortunately did not go out on St. Patrick's Day. I have a kind of a fear of alcohol drivers. And there were 3 accidents on the coast side, all at the same time, within the same window. And one was, according to Nextdoor, because I never got an SMC alert for that one either, there was one at Gray Whale Cove, and there was one in Montera, and there was one down here on Medio at Highway 1. And I believe that one, they closed the highway for 2 hours. So we're really cut off over here. There was one person on Nextdoor that said they had called the sheriff's department. I'm not sure if anybody knows who Mr. Sheridan is. I'm not sure if he lives in the unincorporated part of, what's that called, Miramar, or he lives in unincorporated. Don lives in the unincorporated, so he calls the San Mateo County Sheriff. It took them almost an hour and a half to respond, but I'm thinking maybe the Half Moon Bay sheriffs that they contract through San Mateo County are sucking all our oxygen, so they can't respond to local coastside Midcoasters calls because they're busy dealing with Half Moon Bay. I understand there was a robbery and everything else.
If we
I'm
could
done.
kind of, what I want to let you know is the sheriff will be here at a subsequent meeting. We also have a letter that we're sending to multiple agencies on the agenda. What I would suggest is that people who have specific comments to make to CHP, make them now while they're here. And then general comments about the situation in general, why don't you save that for as we consider the letter?
All right, I missed the public comment, or I would
That's
have
fine.
ranted
That's
during
fine.
that time.
That's fine.
But I kind of just overheard this gentleman say that there's no communication between the
Oh.
Caltrans and Sheriff and CHP. They all have their own communication networks. So there wasn't any way to pass on the information to get back to SMC alert. So somebody at the Sheriff's Department who's in OES could type it in.
We're not picking this up on the microphone.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
You
okay.
told me to get off the podium, so I did.
Okay. Anybody have specific comments for CHP? Yes.
Can you come up?
Hi, just about the, with what happened at the tunnel that day. I was mainly, I think a lot of people were frustrated because there was like no way to get information about the situation, and so I understand there's this, you said CHP something?
SMC alert.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. I'm sorry, that's my bad. But the only way I knew about anything was next door, and the notification was that it was 5:45, and I got home like I got home at midnight, but I took 84 and 35. My brother took 92, and he got home after me. So there was just a lot of miscommunication, and I just want to know if there's like another way or a new outlet for that possibly, because it was just really confusing for a lot of people, and that was like the biggest frustration, I think. Because people just wanted to get home, and if people knew the actual time, that could be said of when, you know, the tunnel will be ready accurately, then people would, you know, they'd take the highways if they could at the time. So I don't know if there's another outlet for that. The only way I think that information was said was through that outlet, or I saw somebody walk up to the car, the cop car there, but that was it. And yeah, it was a super windy day. My car was like moving when I was sitting. But yeah. So I just want to know if there's a different outlet for that that can be more communicating to the public, because the most frustrating thing was just the accuracy was way off. Thanks.
Claire, I saw that we had on the agenda for the 24th of April, the SMC Sheriff's Department and OES.
Yes.
Is that, are we going to discuss the alert, the issues with the alert
That's my
system
plan.
at that?
Yes.
Okay.
The KCBS actually announced on the radio that the tunnel was open. Did anybody else hear that?
Yep.
They actually made that announcement.
And
When
on
did they say
St.
it?
Pat,
What time? It
When?
was approximately 5:30,
yeah, it was about
5:25,
5:30.
something like that.
Are there any specific things that you would like to say to the Highway Patrol while they're here? Any specific questions for them? Karl, I think was there something you wanted to say, or?
Yeah. I understand that after debriefing, going over what happened and so forth and so on, some people like the officer get an official set of timelines and so forth. Some of what you said was not accurate. Knowing that the tunnel had been closed and without an idea how far it was going to be open, I left my home in Moss Beach and I had business to do in Pacifica. It was a little after 7 o'clock and the backups were already going. This is 7 p.m., not 8:30. The backups are already going.
On 92?
On 92. So, because I had sense enough not to trust anything where I didn't have the definite opening time. It was about a quarter to a half mile backup leaving town, and at that time, shortly after 7, it was already past Skyline coming into town. So I think maybe what happened is you were given a time when actual tree cutting began or something, but maybe this was preparatory to that, but it was already one-lane traffic control at that time, and there was already considerable backup. And it was earlier than any of the projected times for when the tree cutting was supposed to be starting, which had been lit up on signs and stuff like that for weeks now.
Which said 10 p.m.
A day or two afterward, and there's just numerous messages saying the same thing. I'm not the only person saying this. A day or two afterwards, they also jumped the gun on the starting time on 92 and had no problem. The tunnel wasn't closed those days, but they also jumped the gun on when the starting time was supposed to be for the tree work or whatever it was on 92. So I think we could possibly get a petition or whatever of people testifying to this, and you would find that there are hundreds and hundreds of coastsiders that are willing to state their personal experience on a different timeline than what the probably the official one is right now. The only other thing I'll mention at the time is when that tunnel was designed and constructed, everything was done to spend as much money as could possibly be gained to design and construct that tunnel. There are tunnels of the same length, and I've brought this up repeatedly, like the Wawona Tunnel in Yosemite and so forth, that have no fans in them, that are much more of a confined space, that have traffic backed up solidly through them on summer days, and have little side tunnels that aid the ventilation there, and that there's a natural flow of air across these steep hillsides and cliffs many days, and there was a great flow of air on the day that we had a problem. There's no way of getting around the people who have control over this, but at the least they could do, as far as driving through the tunnel, goes is have a carbon monoxide sensor in the tunnel. And okay, if the carbon monoxide gets up to a level where it's not deemed not to be safe, okay, then close it down. The fans aren't doing their job or whatever. Or so, but just having that sensor there, I'm going to place my bets that the carbon monoxide levels are just not there most of the time, knowing the history of those fans. And we all know that you drive through those tunnels, even when there's heavy commute traffic and so forth, and some of the fans are barely turning. They're just not going around. They're not making enough of a blow. So the carbon monoxide thing, I guess about the only simple solution would be to have some sensors in the tunnel and not shut the tunnel down for that reason until those sensors show a level that becomes dangerous.
Thank you. I think that obviously this is a very complex issue. There's no one agency that's going to be able to come in here and answer all of our questions because they're all going to be complexly involving other agencies. I think that you had something else you wanted to bring up.
I just had one more question for Lieutenant Banuelos. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but to Karl's point about the tunnel and the carbon monoxide risk, I had heard that there should be a backup generator or some kind of generator for backup power. And my biggest concern is, obviously that was a big annoyance to all of us that had to commute on that day. But if there were an emergency such as an earthquake and the power would probably be out, like, you know, of course we would want to be able to reunite with our families. And so do you happen to know if there's any sort of alternative solution to provide power to those ventilation fans in the event of a major emergency so that, you know, people could continue through the
I wish I
tunnel?
could give you an exact answer, but
Yeah.
we did debrief this incident, of course. We do debrief, right, how we can get better. One thing I was made aware is that the Coastal Commission didn't approve a generator at the time. So, of course, that's out of our hands, and I wish I could give you a better exact answer. But that's all that I know about this, for that situation.
Thank you.
I was, yeah.
I was just going to add, as I understand, with a backup generator, I believe, I heard somebody mentioning Caltrans would be able to speak better to this point, but with the backup generator, it would be required to be started every month to ensure that it's running and operable. And so I think between the cost and it sounds like the environmental impact of the noise and kind of how it might invade the coastal area, it sounds like that was really one of the key reasons why, unfortunately, a backup generator isn't an option there.
Thank you.
I think we should
Well,
revisit
it wasn't
that.
at the time.
Yeah.
Wasn't at the
Now,
time.
given the
Yeah.
information, I
At the time.
feel like.
Yeah.
I would assume that in the event of major emergency, that it wouldn't matter whether the fans were going or not, we would go through the tunnel. Would that be reasonable?
And that's what I mentioned
concern?
earlier about life or death situation, you know.
Yeah.
It's an emergency, it's an emergency. To answer your question, ma'am, earlier about the communication, I'll give you an example of what happens. So if it's an incident in our jurisdiction, our officers are going to make the appropriate notifications to our dispatch center, which will then relay to all the allied agencies and even, you know, whoever is affected by it. So there is some type of communication there, even though we don't have the direct supervision or communication with, say, San Mateo County sheriffs, but our dispatch, our officers while on scene will provide the information and relay the information to the sheriffs.
So then, if they drop the ball, putting it on SMC alert, we still don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know who dropped the ball, nobody's gonna, I can't
I'm
blame,
not
yeah, exactly.
saying you guys did,
But,
but you do close the Highway 1 if there's a big accident, right?
it just depends. What we try to do, if we ever have a traffic collision or we want to open the roadways as soon as possible, of course. If we know there's going to be a delay for a long time because of a major investigation or something that we just cannot clear the roadways as soon as practical, then we'll make the appropriate notifications. We'll activate the SIG alerts, TMC signs, alternate routes, and that's what that supervisor did that night. As soon as
TMC sign?
the traffic management center, you see the freeway signs.
The orange alert sign?
Yes. That sometimes
Changeable message signs.
Exactly, or something. And we'll try to get Caltrans on a hard closure to get out there and put message signs maybe before whatever interchange to at least warn people, you know. And that's I mean, They'll get out there, you know, like I said,
But
this
they
evening.
can't do it from their office, like if you.
Yes, the message alerts in our office, but our dispatch centers can do that.
Oh, okay.
The message signs that aren't portable, of course.
That's good to know. The permanent ones,
Yes.
but thank you.
So from a life and death standpoint, if there's an ambulance with an emergency patient, do you have provision to escort them through going the long way and also through the tunnel under those conditions, or would they be stuck?
Like I said, if it's life or death situation and you have to do it, you have to do it, you know? That's what I imagine.
So is that within your operational policy, or are you just saying that as a normal person sitting there, you take it upon yourself to move them through and?
Yeah, that'd be my opinion there at the scene, you know?
Gotcha. Is there a procedure, since they would have to go against traffic?
Oh, yeah, of course, but we would definitely have to have
Escort them
escorts,
through there.
exactly, with, you know, emergency lights and maybe radio for safety of other oncoming, they shut down the traffic, we have to go, you know, that's all through coordination, of course,
Yeah, thank you.
safely.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
The time between when the first officer arrived and the time they actually closed the road, how much time passed?
I wish I could give you a better answer on that, but that was San Francisco area. I want to say when the call first came out, maybe within half an hour, the first unit got out there,
So
around there.
They kind of,
If I remember
I
correctly.
think it was in the newspaper that they kind of, they let the traffic go through, but at some point they said, no.
Yes.
Now we have to close it.
Exactly, and that's when, hey, I mean, there's a law that we got to follow and liability. you know,
Somebody at the top answered the phone and made a decision.
That was at Caltrans probably, fault to close the tunnel, not to escort people through.
And then, of course, if they're giving you updates saying, hey, they believe it's gonna be half an hour to an hour, and of course, it takes longer and longer. I mean, the officer out there and whoever had the incident command, they're just getting this information, they're telling us, hey, it's gonna happen now, right? Eventually, something happened where the message was sent out, like I said, to the San Mateo County alert system, a miscommunication there, but it took longer.
The next morning.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said that Caltrans was in charge of everything this time for the tunnel being down and opening?
No, I don't know who sent that message out. It could have been another agency, because Caltrans doesn't communicate with the county.
That's the sheriff's OES handles that.
Yes, the San Mateo County, yeah.
They just
Like I said, I'm not running here to blame anybody
Yeah, no.
or anything like that, it's just,
Okay.
Thank you very much. Karl?
It seems to me the communications among the various agencies and so forth were a big part of this. And you have, I'm sure, a good communication system. You sent communications to the right place and so forth. But a lot of it got lost after that. And there were estimated times of opening and stuff like that that you probably had nothing to do with. But other kinds of information you provided were germane to the situation. I think that what the Midcoast Council might do, and I don't know if you would have any objection to this.
So Karl, can you go to the microphone so this gets picked up on the video?
What I would hope that the Midcoast Council, possibly with all of the local experience on this, could do would be to, after the comments over the coming weeks, provide us as citizens with a single reliable place for information. Not depend on SMC alerts, not depend on phone calls to Caltrans, not depend on this, not depend on that, not depend on next door. But to have, as a result of this, a communications outlet that all the agencies are feeding the best possible information into. And that people could rely on.
Those Amber Alert signs, they just need more of them at the entrances to Highway 1 heading down through Pacifica and 92 heading over to
But then
Hill.
that's going to
They don't have
depend,
permanent
that's going to
ones.
depend on who's operating the Amber Alert signs and what
But he said
information they
could
got.
Update the Amber
Yeah.
Alerts.
Okay, well, maybe CHP is the place to have this central information, but I'm talking about people sitting and wondering, all the motel rooms are already full in Pacifica and so forth and so on. What's the best possible information?
That sounds like one of the goals to
I would
strive for.
hope
I don't know
that-
that we can come up with it.
I would hope that,
Give as much information as we
something
can.
that works for all the agencies involved, and that we could then get a place you could depend on. for this information in situations like this.
I think I'm going to close this agenda item and let the Highway Patrol get on with their evening. I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Just want to thank you guys. It's a pleasure meeting you guys. I'll be here, you know, like I said, I was assigned here January 1st. Looking forward to working with the council and the community. And you all have my business card, and if any issues I can pass on to our supervisors to pass to the troops out there to provide the highest level of safety, service, and security to you guys. That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I thought we would move on and stay with the same topic, but a slightly different slant. We do have a letter. The next topic on the agenda is the approval of a letter, which is probably available out front. It's also on the agenda that was posted on the website. This is a letter that the MCC is writing to Caltrans and to Supervisor Horsley with copies to the Highway Patrol and to State Senator Jerry Hill, basically summarizing our concerns about emergency services, communication, and how closure decisions are made. So I will open it up to the council for any questions or comments.
I think it's too soft. I think it needs to be a bit more pushy.
So, the question I have is from,
When?
sorry,
Let's go around the table, start with Barbara, and then go back to,
Michelle.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it says Montana, not Montero, in the first paragraph.
Common mistake.
So you would like it to be stronger?
I think it should be really, like, we want answers. We want to know who's responsible for this. I love that the CHP comes here. They come here pretty regularly. We don't see anybody else.
We have Caltrans coming, we have the sheriff coming.
I get that. No, I get that now. But I mean, if we're going to send this letter before we talk to them.
So the question I have for you to clarify, whether you consider this a letter that you want acted on today, or are we gathering information to send it out later or in phases?
Well, when this letter was written, we did not know that these other people were going to be coming. Since we now have a series of people that are committed to coming, it's possible that the council may decide that we want to table the letter and decide on it after we've heard from more people. That's up to the council.
I would agree with that.
I like that idea.
Do we have a motion to do that, or do you want to discuss that more?
Let's do the discussion. I think that's
Yeah.
where we're headed, but we still want a discussion now.
Okay. Are there comments on the letter itself, or do you want to wait on till we are actually ready to send it? Michelle, do you have any comments?
No, I agree that with the opinion that it is a little bit too soft, and I think it does a good job in covering all of the different aspects that are important to people that we've heard from the community. So I think it's the overall information that that is contained in it is right, but I do think, like, we need answers. There are a lot of questions here that we didn't get. We got a little bit more information tonight, but we don't have any answers as to what's going to happen in a major emergency if the tunnels are closed or 92 is closed. We don't have answers on the emergency alert system and why that failed, why we got one alert, one notification that said that the tunnel would be closed until 5:45 and nothing again until after 9 a.m. the next morning. So I think probably in this letter we would want to kind of elaborate on some of those circumstances and say why these are unacceptable to us and what are we going to do about it.
Dave?
I don't think making this, stronger is going to help. All of these people are in sort of the same position that we are. They're all responsible to other people. But if there's something specific people want in terms of wording, rather than just stronger, that's worth talking about. But remember that we're asking for cooperation from all these people. We're not just complaining. So it has to be it's something that they can act on.
Well, so in the effort to get someone here from Caltrans, I was the person already in touch with some people at Caltrans, so I was able to speak ultimately to the information officers who had, last week they were basically hindered from making any commitment till Caltrans had a meeting this past Monday. With that meeting done, they're open to come to the meeting, but we weren't able to get that arranged. We could have had a remote hookup, but instead we opted to go for a meeting at our next session, which would be on the 10th. And if you look at what Claire's put down here, so if you see Caltrans to come on the 10th, and then emergency service and the sheriff's coming on the 24th, I think that's actually the right order. And in fact, when I've been communicating with Caltrans, just on the basis of this meeting, I can at least give them some more specific directions in terms of things we're interested in that we believe they can shed light on. Whereas when I talked to them earlier today, that it wasn't as clear. So in doing this in sequence, and I think the sequence is also right, we then, by the time we get through with the meeting on the 24th, be in position to speak from an overview and to emphasize points there. That being said, I think it would be good for us to certainly let Jerry Hill and the Supervisor Horsley know that what we've evolved into is conducting a series of 3 meetings, with different agencies there, so to give strength to our recommendations. I also agree with what Dave is saying. I think the agencies, that they recognize the weaknesses of some of the type we're looking at here. So rather than beat them with a big stick at the initial point, we're looking for them to bring as much accurate information as we can get in these sessions to help point there. For example, I appreciate Karl's sentiment, but I'm assuming that what we're asking is, can we get the emergency services communication network better linked into all the elements that are closest to us? But I don't know that for sure. So that's why this opportunity to speak to them in sequence, I think, is good for us, and that's the way Claire's orchestrated it.
So for the minutes, are you suggesting that we do send a letter?
I'm suggesting just a letter to Jerry and Don. It basically says we have these concerns, and over the next 3 sessions, this being the first one, we're looking into it and then look to have a concluding letter at the end of it.
You're suggesting sending it to the 2 representatives, but wait to send an interagency letter would be more comprehensive.
Correct.
Okay. Tamara?
One thing in terms of the comments about the tone or kind of firmer, stronger language, one approach might be maybe like a visual or a chart or something really delineating the cumulative incidents that have happened in such a short time. I know there's a couple dates mentioned, just some general language around a lot of things or several occurrences, but if we really list them out, I think it does kind of have impact and strengthen the fact that this actually is a serious issue, that there's a lot of specific dates and times kind of overlapping. So I don't know, that's just one way to kind of beef up the tone without really using aggressive language or heated dialogue or anything like that.
Dan?
I got a question for the whole council, and that is, who here, is it acceptable that nearly a $500 million tunnel can be closed down for the amount of time that it was for simply a power outage? For who here sitting at this table, is that acceptable?
Obviously, if it weren't a problem, we wouldn't be talking about it.
So it's not acceptable to the whole council. I think we should write that on the letter.
So you're,
It's just not acceptable.
Combined with total lack of communication.
It could happen.
But
It could happen again next week.
But this is
Right.
taking an adversarial tone, which accomplishes nothing useful.
It gives a clear message, and I think,
Well, they've heard that
I
message
think they got
loud and
it.
clear in the newspapers.
so you would like that
I think we should
terminology
formalize it.
to be in an ultimate letter, is what you're saying?
Pardon?
You would like that terminology to show up in the letter when it's finally written?
Yes. And I think that we should table the letter. I don't think we should spend any time writing a letter. We should go through the next few meetings and, but I'm gonna propose that, yes, that message is in the final letter. It is just not acceptable that a $500 million tunnel can be, rendered, unusable.
I think that the three of us, myself, Dave, and Lynn, who worked on this presentation this evening, we're in a position where we have gotten some people who don't normally come to these meetings to come. We would like to approach it in a way that they continue to be willing to come and continue to be willing to talk with us. So we have to thread a way between making clear to them what we want and what answers we need from them and not assaulting them so that they don't come back. We'd like to use this as an opportunity to open a dialogue, especially with Caltrans, because they've been difficult to get to work with us. And if they are going to be willing to start working with us, we'd like to start off on a relatively cordial note, and then once we get the information, be extremely clear with them exactly what we want. So it's a threat, it's a fine line. I hear people saying that they would like it stronger.
Well, we could give that message that it's not acceptable, and then we are fully interested in working forward to come up to a solution that works.
I think that that's the ultimate goal.
But okay.
I think if we already have Caltrans, because I think if the situation were that Caltrans was not even giving us any attention or time of day and wasn't going to show up, then a strongly worded letter at this point would make sense. But considering that they are going to come, we think, to the next meeting, I think we should, I would say, table the letter, hold off on the letter until after we've had a chance to hear from them, and let's ask them our questions, and let's, at the end, be very specific about this is pretty broad, but to Tamar's point, let's be very specific about, the individual problems that are not acceptable. I have no problem being strong in the wording if that's what it takes to get solutions and to get change. But I don't think now is the right time to do that.
Well, ultimately, they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna solve it. They just need to hear a clear message that, it's just.
We have to get them to come in order to give them that clear message.
Well, if they don't come, we'll write them a letter.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have a question actually for Karl. So to the point that you raised, maybe if you could come up there on that issue. So you raised a good point that the one thing we have here, probably the highest concentration of people inconvenienced with the whole situation, but also if we could tap that in some way, have a more accurate data. Do you have any way, just by the contacts and available resources, to assemble a timeline that might be useful for us?
A timeline?
Well, you were talking about, there's basically incidents of people who had this happen here, and this happened there, and this happened there. If one assembled it, there might be a profile. It could be.
It seems to me that a lot of the agencies and local government and so forth knew something was going on. Okay, so the point was, can this be fed, the most accurate, up-to-date information be fed through a point where the local citizenry knows this is the best word? I have a real cynical, personal approach to this, but I think that kind, and I can tell you how it works to my advantage in things like this backup, but it would be better not to have to always be operating on your cynical history of these kinds of things.
Is it information that can be assembled? Let's say, for example, if we were to ask for people's just to give us a timeline from them individually.
Yeah, right. Well, the highway patrol had people in places, that had information.
No, the individual human story is, let's say, there were 200 people here, just to take a number, cars who have a timeline of what happened to them, and hearing things, and if you put that together, it would create more of a...
that I mentioned in a sense that you could find that many people quite easily on the coast.
But then somebody has to assemble it.
Yeah, somebody would have to assemble all of that. We could get Sunny to do another little poll kind of thing.
I was gonna say, can
know.
actually do that and find out when people got home, post it on Nextdoor, and then CC the MCC so they have the personal stories on each individual.
You could do that.
And people were very upset, and they were not lying about their condition, you know.
I'm sorry, so in response to my answer, I think what's been said is, if you posted to Nextdoor, we're interested in, just send us your timeline. And then in
How long
aggregate,
you
you
waited in
often,
the Civita, how long it took you to get to Highway 84, how long it took you to get
Yeah.
all the way to
Exactly.
West Beach.
And what time of day it was.
And when SMC alert notified you the next morning, finally the tunnel was open.
Yes.
Or how did you find out? How did you know?
Mhm.
That's a good
Yeah.
thing to know.
Yeah,
It
okay.
seems like nobody knew.
Okay, what I'm doing is going with long decades of experience with this kind of thing and having the slide closed and so forth. I already knew the tunnel was closed. I left town. I was guessing that the tunnel would be open by the time I was done in Pacifica. I'm there. I'm listening to radio broadcasts on and off. KCBS is saying, one estimate is that this will be open at 6. That was a number given at one time, and so forth. But all of these were estimates. I finished up in Lindemar, 9 p.m., you know, and nothing definite about the tunnel reopening. And I would advise nobody to operate on estimated openings and things like that. So I immediately got back up on Skyline, got on 280, headed south. By that time, the backups on 92 were all the way up onto the approaches to 280, so I didn't even slow down. I went right on down to Woodside and over the hill. But the information can be along those lines too.
no, and so you've got one story, and you're saying there's probably.
Yeah,
you know,
and
several
a lot of
others.
others too.
And
Old timers knew.
No, I understand, so what I'm
to do
asking
some of
the
this stuff.
community for, and basically if we wanted to do it, we could do it through Nextdoor, is if you provided us data like this, then we can assemble
Yeah,
it.
well, yeah, the other problem is Nextdoor, you know, doesn't get to the people who are beyond the digital divide.
I understand that.
And Nextdoor, not everybody's checking into Nextdoor as they're trying to get home from work.
We're open to other sources, but that's
Yeah.
obviously.
That's it, so I'm suggesting a governmental source that's reliable.
And I don't think Karl should have to compile it. I think you guys should
No,
compile it.
that's what I said.
So put it
No,
as a paper.
Sid, that's what I'm saying, it's an action we can take as a council.
I can take that on.
Let's take one person at a time.
Okay.
Could I say one more thing, and then I'll shut up and sit down? Through your series of meetings, I think another thing, in addition to a reliable source of information on the highway when there are problems, would be a plan for what to do when the highway is plugged up in various places for various reasons. And this will, at the end, this was something that couldn't be talked about even until after all your meetings and so forth. But obviously, in this case, there were some alternatives, like I was saying, you know, I actually came home to Neatus Creek Road, because I like driving through the dark roads. So here it says, Highway 1 is one of only 2 access points. I would change points to routes.
We'll deal with the fine-tuning.
Into our area. But along this line, opening up.
Karl, we need to move on.
I'm just saying, opening up the Devil's Slide Trail is entirely doable, things like that. So a scheme with if-then decisions to be made in specific instances would be a good outcome.
Karl's talking about solutions. I think your question was about past historical, what happened during this. And I would be happy to compile that based on the data from Nextdoor if necessary. I would just ask, like, how are we going to utilize that information?
So, sounds like we could pull in an offline discussion to take that on.
Sounds good.
Doris? Dolores?
I think that this is such an experience for the coast that I don't know that you need all the details, but I think if you just say, okay, so the tunnel closed at whatever time, 5:30. It was projected to be open at 6:30. There were no subsequent SMC estimates of when it would open, and it didn't open until 12/26 or whatever it was. I mean, that's a long time. I think that will give the people an idea of how many individuals had to make decisions about what they were going to do. And then it's one thing if you live here and you kind of know, like Karl, how to get around. But what about people who are tourists? What do they do? I mean, what information do they have? So I think this was a real travesty on communications and a real lack of preparedness for either of these two major routes to be closed. And I think that's where this letter needs to be stronger, not to lambast anybody, but just say this showed us that we have some major gaps in being prepared for how to handle an emergency of any kind, even something as simple as the power went out. I mean, that's going to happen. And so I don't think that this letter needs to be like confrontational, but it can state some facts that really give a clearer picture of what happened and how many people it inconvenienced. Because to be closed from 5:30, I mean, that's 7 hours. People were renting rooms until they ran out of rooms over there, and it's just really, it was a bad deal for everyone. But I don't know that you have to go and specify how many people agonized. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of bad stories and not enough that will make any more difference than just stating the facts, I think.
Well, any information that anybody wants to give to us that they think is a strong way to present things, I would be happy to look at it. And as we put together our final letter, it's good to have as much input as possible. Right now we have, as I understand it, 3 possible suggestions for what to do with this letter. One is to send it as is, one is to completely table it, and one I heard was to send it to Jerry Hill and to Don. So I'm not sure where the council wants to go with
Are
that.
you taking any more audience questions before you continue on with the board?
Do you have one?
Yes, I raised my hand, but you just started in with them.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Once again, Sid Young, Moss Beach. I really think the letter's too soft, even if you want to be mamby-pamby and conciliatory with the people that you're sending it to right now. You need to stress in bullet point bold letters that there was a total lack of updates or communication to the drivers in their cars. That's the important thing. A lot of people have smartphones nowadays and they could check into Nextdoor. But SMC alert, total failure, no update till the next morning. There was no kind of signs anywhere, except after I finally left Pacifica and went around, I did see a sign on Highway 280 approaching the Highway 92 off-ramp that said traffic delays on 92. We need, and I think you should put it in this letter, and subsequent meetings you can focus it in again. We need some permanent Amber Alert signs that are posted at entrances to some of the feeder routes that get down here. For instance, Highway 280 and 92 at the San Mateo interchange, because people looping in, I'm coming up from Redwood City at 5, it was already backed up. I bypassed it to go to Pacifica based on faulty SMC alerts. Then Highway 92 at Main Street for people going eastbound when there's a traffic jam on 92 and it's closed, and you always see on Nextdoor, oh, anybody know why 92 is stopped? They don't have any communication, not just this time, but most times when there's a closure. Westboro and 280, Skyline and Sharp Park. People are coming in from all different directions to get down to the coast. Why should a driver be coming from San Francisco, go all the way through Pacifica, 12 miles, and then see a CHP car blocking the tunnel? And then you have to turn around and go 12 miles back. Or like the guy that, thank God, he kept walking out from his car, asking the CHP that was blocking the road, then walking back and typing it into Nextdoor.
Okay.
If it wasn't for that guy, none of us sitting in our cars would have known anything.
Thank you.
So that's what I have to say. And some of this letter, I could give you some typos too, but.
This is a draft.
It's a draft. It needs to be stronger.
So, as I said, I think we have 3 things that have been suggested that we do at this point, and I don't know what people would prefer. Some comments on which of those 3 courses you would like to take.
Just go down the line.
Yes, please. Michelle?
I think we should either table this letter or I'd possibly be open to sending us a letter just to the supervisors.
Table.
I'm for a letter to Don Horsley and Jerry Hill, just letting them know what we plan to do over the next meetings, in part because I know, having talked to both Ellie and Don's supervisor from aide from Pacifica, they have good information that's helpful and perspective there, so I'd like to see us tap them in that sense.
Table. And I think we should also come up with some kind of a timeline of facts. There are a lot of things floating around.
Well, let's just focus on the letter.
But that would help us.
But what are we going to do tonight? That's the thing.
I volunteered to do that.
I would table it.
The timeline?
Yes.
Great.
So I need it sounds like the consensus is to table it.
I'll make a motion that we table the letter.
A second?
Second.
All in favor of tabling the letter? 6-1.
I'm sorry, who made the motion and seconded it again?
I made the motion. Dan second.
Thank you. Council activity.
I can report that yesterday we did an Adopt a Highway, much thanks to Chris and Lisa Ketchum. They both joined me, and we got we got the southern end of Moss Beach down to Etheldore and then back up the side, the other side of the highway, the east side. We got a lot of trash, had burritos, it was great. And we're gonna try to do it again next Tuesday, to get the northern part, so. If anybody wants to join us, 10 o'clock on Tuesday at the Sheriff's Substation. On one announcement, or is this about Adopt Highway?
Yeah, that, I would.
I have a question on that.
Most
So I
likely never be
volunteered,
able
but-
to.
Yes, you did, and I did, what happened was this was a very last minute thing, we wanted to get it in before the end of the month,
Yeah.
and we
I'm not
just
crushing
decided to
this.
do it,
Make sure
so it'll happen.
Yeah, I would just say, I didn't know about it either, and I would have participated because I work from home on Tuesdays.
Well, we
And
only have
so-
room for 4,
Oh, okay.
so we only have 4
I think
sets
Dan
of.
was talking, you guys
Okay.
interrupted him, so.
We were trying to finish your item there, please. Sid, we were trying to finish that conversation.
Okay, Dan, you have an announcement? Or a
Yeah, so
report?
I would, just for the record, I would, do the work, I would never be able to help on a weekday.
We-
So, and a lot of my weekends are busy, but I do want to help, so
Okay.
hopefully we could work towards.
It's just the traffic is light early on a weekday morning, and it's
But just for
it's
the
just the
record.
way it worked, but I'm sure we'll do some Saturday ones. We just want to get the area kind of mapped out where we can and can't go, what works. And since Chris is the co-chair still remains the co-chair on Adopt a Highway, we just wanted to get out there and do it, so. And
That's great.
everybody that hasn't done it has to go through training. I can't just say, come and meet us and pick up trash. We have to have the Caltrans training, so.
Which
we'll
consists
work
of
on it.
watching a video.
Which consists of watching a video, that is correct.
Are we have an official sign since MCC adopted this part of the highway?
Where it's
Cool.
in the
Essentially.
works, yeah. It's that part between Etheldore and Montera. So it's downtown, all the downtown area.
So maybe up to where the Mormon church is, or even?
Oh, no, we're further, all the way up to 16th.
Oh, okay.
Is it family friendly? And like, can kids go do it, or?
No,
you
no,
have to be-
no, you're on the hot side of the highway with safety equipment on, and you wouldn't want your kids.
Okay, that's scary.
There's actually a Caltrans regulation you have to be.
And oddly enough, I came down to the office to drop the stuff off, and just within that 15 minutes, they had already come, Caltrans has already picked up all the bags. We had 2 spots where we had bags back, so they're on top of it, so. Anyway, thank you, Chris.
I was preparing, I was thinking you were going to do it.
And the second announcement I have is more of a clerical one for the bank. After we changed banking information, we didn't realize nobody was getting the statements for the bank, and the bank changed the address to this building instead of the P.O. box because they needed a physical address. Nobody gave them to us. So we went down there yesterday and got that corrected, but our bank balance is $4,592.72. And Lisa is updating the financial report. That's it.
Lynn, were you wanting to report on the conference, or?
So there was, as mentioned earlier, a conference, wildfire conference, basically organized by the county's Committee for Sustainability. It was widely attended, and I was in attendance, Claire was in attendance, as was Greg, a citizen here. You weren't able to make it, is that right?
I had a death in my family.
So a particular note was that there were 2 hot spots out of 35 in the state, one Kings Mountain Road and the other Quarry Park, that were designated by Governor Newsom for fast-track improvement of the situation, all 35. And he gave that task to CAL FIRE. So I followed up with a conversation with Rich Sampson, who's basically the chief in our area who has responsibility there. And my particular interest was Quarry Park, where they have a major program underway. So I talked both to Rich and to RDC, who's basically supporting them in the effort. And this leads into asking them to come and give us a presentation on the effort in Quarry Park, because they're trying to get these programs done by the end of the calendar year. So it's an aggressive effort.
What does the program consist of, Lynn?
In major form, and this was just in a short conversation, is there are a number of old logging roads in Quarry Park that some have just turned into trails, and they want to make all of those capable of handling fire engines, along with the clearance of eucalyptus, et cetera, around them, and then some additional clearing as well.
Were they going to relocate?
Well, the point is, he's going to come to talk to us about it, and there's serious interest in it.
Any other council activity? Future agendas include the things we've talked about this evening, the double slide ride, the presentation from Caltrans, the sheriff, OES, and probably some other agencies. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned.